parang papansin na bata na, me. When opportunity arises, I'm like, I'm there. The grit. My restaurant right now, after 5 months of being open, we're in the Michelin Guide.
Which is amazing. Good food becomes great with amazing company. In this episode of Mouthful, I'm catching up with Chef Frances Tariga, celebrity chef, reality culinary show veteran, and genius behind Tadhana, a Filipino restaurant in the heart of New York City that serves a multi-course tasting menu inspired by the flavors of home. It's been making waves in the US where a Filipino-American food renaissance is taking place, and she is right in the middle of it. Born and raised in Manila, Frances began her culinary journey in the kitchens of Dubai's first 7-star hotel in the world and even cooked for the royal family of the UAE. Eventually, she made her way to New York City, where she left her mark on some of the city's most sought-after restaurants. Along the way, she competed in shows like Chopped, Cutthroat Kitchen, Beat Bobby Flay, Top Chef, and Morimoto Sushi Master, becoming its first champion. These are all huge shows that I watched fervently in my 20s. This is the first time we've met offline, and I've always believed that conversations are always best when our mouths are full. How are you? Nice to meet you. How are you? The first time I actually heard about you was when you messaged me.
Idol ko to eh.
You DM'd me when I was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then you said, hey, check out, I think you're still doing pop-ups.
I think that time it was like Trust Bay. It's like the Filipino-Japanese omakase.
Yes, exactly.
It was very popular because a lot of Filipinos around in America, they're looking for something that's different, not just kamayan. And then, yeah, I messaged you. I was like really a big fan. Like I said, like sabi ko, how am I gonna make it in New York, basically? You know, hindi naman siya naging madali dahil marami rin mga Filipinos na, that's not Filipino food.
Thank you.
Salamat.
So we're in Wayang because you mentioned, so there was one restaurant you wanted to go to that's closed now.
Yep.
That was in Binondo. They closed in 2023. But what's something you kind of miss about Phil Chai food? Or what does it remind you of?
Well, like you kasi back in the day when my dad always brings us in a trade here in Binondo actually. Saturday night, you know, after meron kaming parang karerahan, he's the bangka. So if he earns a lot of money, we always go here in Binondo.
Nice.
And like it's like nido soup, pata tim, camarón rebusado, chicken feet, and yang chow fried rice.
Yeah.
That was the go-to. So it's like I was like, you know what? I wanna see what's up in Binondo again.
So it's definitely something I always recommend people come when they come to the Philippines. They're like, oh, I don't want Chinese food. But you're like, yeah, but it's not really Chinese food. Like, it's really indigenous. I remember seeing what you were, I went through your feed. So this is 2023. And I was like, whoa, this is like cutting edge stuff, right? It's very different from what you would see in the scene. So I was kind of very intrigued. And then I still haven't made it to New York, unfortunately, but I'm happy that you're here.
Yep.
So maybe a lot of people know of you from all kind of like the recent press releases and the restaurants that you put up and stuff, but can you kind of take me back to that origin story? Like, are you one of those that migrated?
No.
Or were you born there, or what's your story?
Hell no. I was born and raised in the Philippines, Sampaloc, Manila. Loreto Street, Sampaloc, Manila. Anak kasi ako ng pulis eh, and I grew up in Sampaloc, so may grit na parang... Yeah, so it was like, parang papansin na bata na, me. Pagka may opportunity, when opportunity arises, I'm like, I'm there. I left the country when I was 21 years old after culinary.
Okay.
Like most of the Filipinos around the world, I started my career in the Middle East, Dubai particularly.
Cooking.
I was a prep cook. My first job was I was a prep cook in Burj Al Arab. And then, I think back in the day, there's not a lot of female chefs in Dubai. Sinuwerte ako. I would say it was my luck too, na naghahanap yung princess ng private chef, and I become the private chef of the princess.
Damn.
Yes.
Okay.
And then that opened another opportunity. After that, 2011, I got a call. Kala ko nga scam eh. And there's a lot of scam in Dubai. They said that it's a job in New York. So then I just I did a tasting for him. After 10 days, I was in New York. I was a private chef for the Royal Ambassador of UAE to the United Nations.
Amazing. Do you want you want a chicken feet?
Hey, Chicken Pete?
Yes.
You know what?
Adidas. You did culinary school here,
Yep.
so you've kind of based and built your palate in the country, in the Philippines.
Yeah, and also, I don't come from like a very, hindi mayaman yung pamilya ko. Tama lang, OFW yung mami
Yeah.
ko, police yung daddy ko.
When did you see food, if you saw food, as kind of like a calling or something you really wanted to do?
Well, bago pa yun, when I was younger, nagtitinda-tinda talaga ako every summer outside. May tindahan din kami. Luto ka ng palitaw with the nanny, something like that. Kasi naiinggit ako sa mga bata sa labas. Every summer, they're like selling something in the street. Ako hindi pinapayagan. So what I did is like, I make palitaw. It started with palitaw, pulveron. It's something like
Yeah.
that you can do as a kid, right? Naging afritada, naging nilaga, naging kaldereta. Lahat, yung corned beef, naging sisig pa nga eh. So, yun yung parang doon ako naging creative.
Usually people in their 20s don't necessarily, have the budget or the willingness to kind of go out and eat and everything, right? So the food that you had in your 20s here before you left, were you that into Filipino food yet? Or did you see it just like I did, kind of like just the food you knew and your comfort, but not necessarily something that you geek out about, right?
I've been cooking for 20 years, right? But at the same time, every time I go home, I still cook Filipino food. Kasi magaling magluto yung parents ko rin eh. They take pride of like, how they cook the kare-kare. Hindi na katulad ngayon na kare-kare mix. Yung mga ganun. And then every time I go to the province, to my grandparents' house, they do something like tamales or everything.
So you would see the respected process of the food.
Yes,
okay?
lahat. I saw my dad like really like grinding the peanuts, like toasting the rice, making his own bagoong.
So he was a cop, but was also,
Yeah.
he liked his food.
Yun yung trip niya.
Okay. Okay.
He loves to cook. I think every Sunday, yun lang yung ginagawa niya. I would say my dad, every Sunday, he knows na the whole family is there.
Yeah.
So he cooked for us. Masarap siya magluto. Pag kumakain kami, laging, hindi yung parang, maging mabait kayo sa kapwa, gano'n, di ba? Hindi sa kanya, may bagong modus operandi ngayon ha. Mag-ingat kayo, yung bag nyo, malalasasan kayo. Kumbaga, he's very, kumbaga kung ano yung current na nangyari, hindi yung, anak, mahal kita, mag-ingat ka, babalik ka ng maaga, walang gano'n. It's more on like, what's going on. Kung kailangan, huwag kang papaisa.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect personality to have in a kitchen, right?
Yeah.
In the kitchen, it's kind of, you're in the trenches, and you kind of have to talk to yourself, like, talk to people like that.
And also, ang kusina kasi it's a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
So again, being an, babae, you're already underestimated. Tapos immigrant pa ako.
Tapos kitchen pa.
Oo, kitchen pa. You really gotta,
Yeah.
you really have to have a thick skin in order for you to like really make it. I'm there, like I'm paycheck to paycheck. I open restaurant there, talagang lang talaga. Ako lang, I don't ask for investors because I really believe
In what
na
you're
kaya
doing.
ko eh.
Yeah.
Because I saw it in Trust Bay, yung Filipino-Japanese omakase, na parang Filipinos, Phil-Ams want to really know their culture. But like not always kamayan,
Yeah.
And like my restaurant right now, it's mostly for like celebrations, anniversaries, birthdays, for a special occasion. And after 5 months of being open, we're in the Michelin Guide.
Which is amazing.
Diba?
Where are we heading now? So this is not Filipino, it's Japanese.
Ito, Japanese
Yeah.
because my brother is a chef too. Kami ng kapatid ko lagi kami nag-aaway nito. Magkapatid. But like lahat ng gawin ko, ginagawa niya rin. And then when we were in New York, we opened a restaurant together. He was my sous chef there.
So this is an offshoot of that, or just like a
This is a budgeted, anong ibig mo sabihin?
offshoot? I said offshoot, like this was inspired by that
Yes.
experience. Okay.
Glisero kasi to eh.
Now we're in a fast casual Japanese place. How did this fascination with Japanese food start for both of you guys?
So, nag-start ako sa concept na to kasi pagka-uwi ko ng Pilipinas, so gusto kong makakain ng Japanese cuisine na mura lang. Ngayon, nakikita ko kasi puro tapsilugan, parisan, and karinderya.
Dito sa Sampaloc.
So nag-open ako ng simple na parang Filipino-Japanese cuisine na mura lang, na pangmasa, pang student. That's why I opened here in University Phil.
So because you did Japanese, is it also because you guys were working in a Japanese restaurant?
Yeah.
Yung background niya din after he left Megu, he was like executive chef of Futago. It's like a Wagyu, yakiniku something.
Okay.
So yung ano pa rin niya, nasa Japanese cuisine pa rin.
When did you start working in the Japanese restaurants?
When I came to America, sumali akong cooking show eh. After 2 months na nandun ako, I got casted on Chopped. Tapos, ayun na, umalis na ako sa Ambassador after 3 years ata. And then, I was doing a lot of cooking shows. Nakadalawang cooking shows na ako. But I really wanna, work in New York restaurants. Pero it's hard because if you don't have New York experience, they don't take you
They don't take
seriously.
you. Yeah.
So, nag-start ako mag-work sa Budokan. 1,500 covers, 2 executive chefs,
Insane spot.
10 sous chefs, tapos pastry chef, 300 employees.
Wow.
That was my line cook lang yung ina-applyan ko. And then they said like, how about a sous chef position? Yun na.
Nice.
And then, during my stay in Budokan, I was casted on Top Chef, season 13.
Which is massive. I'm a huge Top Chef fan. Like, massive.
I would say when I was on Top Chef, grabe naman kasi yun, ako lang yung sous chef, ako yung walang accolades. Tapos, I'm the only non-English speaker. So it was like, I would say I was like really fresh off the boat. Talagang grabe, subtitled ako. But that's what make who I am.
So after Top Chef, that was Megu. Not yet pa.
Yeah, after Top Chef, I work at Catch also. So yun, Catch, and then before i-air yung Top Chef, somebody offered me to, wala akong experience in Japanese cuisine Sabi, magbukas daw ng Japanese restaurant. Sige. Di ba? Opportunity arises, what are you gonna do?
Take it.
Sabi niya, do you know Japanese? Yeah. Sige. But like what I did a research, I did R&D, and then they gave me the manual of the old Megu. Kumbaga ginawa ko na lang, that was the first time na yun talaga na parang ako na. And then I needed my people. Hinire ko to. Me and my brother, we solid kami na ito eh. When we were younger, may difficulties because my parents were separated. So talagang kami sa hirap at ginhawa nito.
But you're already you have background in the kitchen also, JP.
When we work in Megu together, my experience is just the kitchen. Yung parents namin mahilig magluto eh. So it was like so natural for us to really, di ba?
Yeah.
Hindi siya nag-culinary pero ang galing niya. He would just watch YouTube. And yeah, umuwi siya ng Philippines and he opened this. He just want a simple life. And then, parang doon ako lagi naliliti sa Japanese cuisine. So I just embrace it. Tapos, 2 years ago, I competed on Sushi Master. I won. I become the first Sushi Master. Yun na. That's how Trust Bay was born. Like, I'm pretty sure nobody will take me seriously as an omakase chef, right? And then I was like, I'm gonna add my own twist on this. Filipino-Japanese. And then yun, people loved it. Siguro for a long time, parang yung parang survival tendency lagi na parang in survival mode. Ngayon parang I wanna share what I learned, na you may be this person right now, but if you work towards your goal, walang imposible.
Yeah. For our last stop, Francis and I headed to Morning Sun for some classic Filipino home-style dishes straight from Ilocos. Hi po.
Hi.
What do you want?
Ampalaya, definitely.
So, dalawang ampalaya, dalawang dinagdakan.
Magra-rice po?
Dalawang rice, please.
Dininding. Dininding ng Ilocano.
Ano pong ibig sabihin ng dininding?
Ang ibig sabihin ng dininding ay yung halo-halong gulay, di ba? Andi dito na lahat.
Parang bulang ilang.
Ayun, bulang lang, di ba? Bulang lang, dininding. Oo.
Here's your empalaya you've been asking for. So let's try it first and see.
Mahilig ako sa
And then
ampalaya.
maybe, and then we ask her if she has the technique, right? Not too intense. That's solid. Okay, so we have empalaya. We have our kiluin na kambing, dinakdakan. Let's try the dinakdakan.
Masyadong
That's
extreme
tasty.
yung ano.
Yeah.
Oo, sarap.
That's-
There's enough acidity.
And then this one, this is something you remember growing
Yeah,
up.
dinengdeng.
Ding ding is actually one of my favorite dishes.
Normally, ano to eh, slimy. May natutunan din ako kanina kasi daw yung stalk. She removed the stalks kasi dun daw nanggagaling yung slime.
So this is kind of like, would you say, kind of the food that you remember eating growing up?
Yeah, the food that I actually hate growing up that I appreciate now and later in my life, you know. 'Cause, you know, your grandparents always push you to eat something na gulay, di ba? And as a kid, hindi mo maiintindihan yung lasa ng ampalaya eh. Parang you're giving me a medicine, something like that. Pero nung nagluluto na ako, that's when I was like, that's why my auntie was like doing that technique. You know, so, a lot of things make sense. A lot of things made sense na.
When did you when did you start finding yourself in kind of Filipino food and understanding, okay, I think now I have the skill set and I want to cook Filipino food?
When I watch your videos. No, seryoso to, real talk.
Thank you.
Because like someone at least is like trying to tell something about Filipino cuisine. Which is like, parang nandun yung realization na, alam mo yun, parang I've been cooking for 20 years. Tapos Korean cuisine, all the cuisines in New York are like, really is like popping right now. But like Filipino cuisine, we just see it as like in Queens
Yeah.
or Kamayan.
It's food for people from there, but it's not anything that anyone else should be consuming, right?
When I was like, more sturdy with myself, na alam ko na kung sino ako, and I accept na kung saan ako talaga galing, that's when it's like all clicked together, the aha moment. Like, yo, cool pala yung ganon. We're very proud Filipinos. So yun, doon na yung tadhana, natakot pa ako noon eh. Parang, umpisa, parang pop-up lang gusto ko eh. Kumbaga parang, we keep improving, and all of us have like, you know, fine dining background.
All Filipino.
Yes. And the thing is like, you know how I sell the dream? It's like, legit to this is what I told them. Yo, help me get my star and I'll help you get your star. Tulungan ba? And sila, the cooks and the chefs, they were like looking for something like this. Yung mamayabang nila na, yeah, we're Filipino, that's why we're doing Filipino cuisine. The concept guideline basically is faithful Filipino flavors. Whatever technique, modernist technique. And the other one is like, you can't cook that at home, tita. Kasi di ba lagi, they all sing, I can cook that at home, di ba masarap, di ba? That kind of thing. That's why the inasal. Pinahirapan namin, dinebone namin, something like that. You know, like something na kailangan in order to execute that dish, it needs like skill set and finesse. Alam ko naman yung masarap eh, because my parents love to cook. So ako para sa akin, pag pumikit ako, gusto ko, it will still remind me of home. Yun lang.
Which is the most important.
Yes.
Yeah. Walk me through maybe one of your favorite dishes in Tadhana.
My favorite dish in Tadhana is the inasal na relya ng pakpak. It's like, okay, inasal, everyone's doing inasal. What will make your inasal different from everyone else? Tapos I tried different stuffing, like kikiam. Sabi ko hindi Pilipino, lasang Chinese. Sabi kong ganon. And then we were like, embutido, pwede kaya yun? We tried it. We used like, legit na embutido ni panlasang Pinoy yung ginamit namin. Legit yung recipe niya, promise.
No, I agree.
Sabi ko, wow, alam nyo na ngayon yung recipe na embutido ko galing sa panlasang Pinoy. But anyway, I used tender juicy hot dog, raisins, yung talagang embutido talaga. And then the inasal, yung maraming tanglad, you know, just make it marinated for 2 days. And then we glaze it with anato. Same procedure of how you cook inasal, but at the same time, we presented it very, very, 1 bite 2 bites, yeah. That's now, parang hindi na mawawala sa menu yun. Yun na yun.
It's one of those that'll keep
Yeah.
following you.
And probably we're gonna open just inasal place. Yun lang yung product, you know. I wanna do something like that for Filipino
More
cuisine.
like fast casual,
Yes.
but well done.
Yes.
And an authentic
Yeah.
dish. Yeah. obviously all this happened this year, right? So what's the reception been like? Has it been stressful, overwhelming? Were your first customers like full on, Pinoy pride, and then all of a sudden now you have, white Americans eating there and never tried Filipino food, and you're the first touch point. Like, it's a lot of responsibility.
Yung pinakauna nakakatakot, kasi wala naman akong backup funds eh. Wala akong investors, wala akong kinuhang kahit sino. Yung anxiety comes from like, what if people don't like it? This is something new, this is Filipino. Ang nakakatakot is like, malakas nung una, di ba? And then it died down during summer. Pero, we try to pivot. Oh, ayaw nila nung, inahanap lang si Chef Francis. Hindi naman pwede yun eh, kasi I have to go also, But like, I want Tadhana to be just Tadhana. So, pinalitan namin yung steps of service, hanggang sa naging sobrang fine dining na siya.
Does the restaurant run without you?
Yes.
Okay, but when you're there, how do you do the tasting? Do you take time to really explain
So-
all the flavors in a dish, where it comes from, things like that?
So in the beginning, I do the introduction, what Tadhana means, and like how I started my career, and how how Tadhana was born, basically. Dubai! We were all overseas Filipino workers. Oh my God, so many Filipinos there. I feel like I was in the Philippines. So I started my career there. I worked in Burj Al Arab. Worked my way up, become the private chef for the princess. And then after that, 2011, I came here in New York City. The goal was just to join Chop. I was like, I want to be on TV. That was the goal. So after 2 months, got casted on Chop. Asian, lesbian, tattoo, thick accent. Good got casted, and then that kind of skyrocketed my career until I went.
For me, that's super important, because I think what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is cooks that are outside the Philippines cooking Filipino food with respect and trying to push it, right, and kind of make it evolve and present it in different ways. It's such an important part of what they call gastro diplomacy and kind of pushing our culture, right?
Yep.
So who knows? Some of your diners have never heard of the Philippines, try the food, say this is fantastic. I'm gonna fly to the Philippines now, and be part of the economy, which is great.
Actually, what's yung parang karamihan ng customer namin yun before was like heavy Phil-Am. Now it's like people from around the world.
So now that you have so many like eyeballs on you, and what I think is cool is you have Filipinos from here flying to New York, making a reservation in Tadhana, which I'll do when I go to New York.
Bahala sa'yo.
I love that circularity, right? How do you make sure that, I always say this in all our videos, Filipino food is still unknown to most Filipinos, to most foreigners. We really don't know our food that well yet. Are you taking steps to like kind of research the food, make trips and things like that? Is that part of your plans?
Yun yung main goal ko and my dream. Makapagbukas ng restaurant sa Pilipinas where people from around the world comes just to dine in at your restaurant. Yung dati kinakahiya ko pa yung lumaki ako sa ganito, but like when I embraced it, like, people understand me more. Ako parang ang naging strength ko sa Tadhana is like, I incorporate yung street where I grew up, na parang, paano ko ba gagawin yung favorite kong merienda na okoy, na fine dining.
Last question. Growing up in Sampaloc, Manila, having a fairly difficult, like a difficult
Upbringing.
family life and upbringing, did you ever kind of see yourself where you are now?
Hell no! 20 years ago, a lot of people call me delusional. Pero, parang wala akong gustong baguhin dun sa naging buhay ko. That's what made me who I am right now. Yung grit, yung tatay ko na, modus operandi yung almusal ko instead of like, it's very, very, hindi naman nakukuha ng lahat ng tao yun eh. Noon hindi ko na-appreciate. But then again, working on myself, I think that's the biggest part is like you work on yourself. I'm not perfect, I have a lot of flaws, but like, in order for you to succeed, you have to see things differently na hindi yung parang you save yourself first, di ba? Now it's like more like pag may nakikita akong batang tomboy, ka mag-alala, Brad! Basta work towards your goal, okay lang yan. You're gonna get there. It took me 21 years to be where I am right now, pero nangyari.
Life is not a race. People start at different points of the race. Some people, like myself, start with privilege. Some people don't. But at the end of the day, who you are as a person greatly affects your growth.
Yes.
Right? And I think you've kind of proven that.
You have to really, really, really be sturdy with yourself, alamin mo, and keep learning. At saka, stay present and show up. Show up, stay present. That's it. Katulad ko, nandito ako ngayon.